All right, guys, we are going to try this again. My phone got hot as I was driving home, sitting in traffic, talking with you all, and it shut off, and it didn't save anything. So I guess this is God's way of saying you get to do this again. So, as promised, it's Wednesday, and I'm continuing with episode number 2 of Wake Up Wednesday. Last week we talked about body, right? Your confidence, your fuel, your fitness. And this week we're talking about part 2, which is your being. So for me, I'm going to say God or creator. That does not mean that you have to agree with that, but you can insert whatever it is or what that means for you. But for me, it's God. So to recap what I was already talking about on my live was it's different for me. And if you would have asked me in March, April, maybe even May, that I would be publicly speaking about my relationship with God, with our Creator, I would have said, no way, no thank you. And that's the funny thing, right? And I'm most certainly am going to ruffle some feathers with what my stance is on this matter. And that's okay. You don't have to agree with me. You can think whatever you want about me. It's not going to affect what I believe. And I sure as hell am not going to dim my light for your belief. So my story is I have not been to church for the better part of 7 years. I really have not read the Bible. And for me, when I was at church 7+ years ago, I did not know God. I did not know Him. And that's part of the reason that my wife and I decided to leave. Did we believe in God? Absolutely. Did we believe in a higher power? Absolutely. Do we still believe those things? 100%. But the problem was we were going to church like so many of you do, going through the motions, right? Intro worship song, message, more worship music, offering, free donuts, and then we'd leave. And again, I'm going to say it because I know somebody's going to comment. I'm not saying that you cannot find God in the church, in the Bible, in a sermon. I'm just telling you my story and my version. And so for the longest time we were volunteering. I helped start our church's security team. I helped start their medical team. And for every Sunday, 4 or 5 hours, my wife and I were volunteering and going to church. We typically would go to church and then volunteer or vice versa. So half the day Sunday, we were at church. And we went to a fantastic church. We didn't leave because there was anything that was happening that would make us want to leave. We didn't leave because of bad people. In fact, this church was fantastic. The pastors were amazing. Their worship music was amazing. But it simply was not for me. It simply, for me, was the status quo. The status quo of going through the motions because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. I'm a Christian. That's what I thought I was supposed to do. I believe, but I do not know God. And because I did not know God, I decided to leave. And if, for some of you who haven't caught on, I am not somebody that stays with the status quo for long. Hey, Heather, what's up? But so I decided to leave. And it wasn't till a few years later when I was contemplating the idea of leaving the fire department that was the first time I heard God speak to me. That's the first time He spoke in my life saying, I got you. Now, I wasn't at church. I wasn't reading the Bible. But it was a sermon online that I watched that helped me through this process. So again, that's where I'm saying if going to church you can know God and find him there, I'm not knocking it. But it's got to be specific to you. And it can't be something that, a family member sits there and tells you you need to read the Bible and you need to go to church and you need to do this. Because society's idea of what you must do or what you should do has nothing to do with God. You, and only you, know what that relationship looks like. And for me, like I said, I was going through the motions. I was, there with worship music. I was tithing. I was there with my wife. I did not feel God there. And as someone who's practiced Core 4 for multiple years, this was something I was missing. I was missing this in my life. And it's not until today or the past few months that I understand the gravity of my actions of not seeking out God. And during this time, I had multiple people say, Paul, you need to go to church, or you should go read this scripture, or whatever. And that's what I call sedated Christians, or Catholics, or whatever. Because they are people that will tell you what you should do when it comes to your being, telling you you should go read the Bible. And I knew for a long time that this was not how it was supposed to be. And it wasn't until my coach put it in a frame for me that I'm like, holy crap, that is exactly what I have been feeling and I have been missing. So when my coach told me that God existed before the Bible and God existed before religion, my mind was fucking blown. I'm like, that is exactly how I feel. That is exactly 100% how I feel. And so that's where that idea of believing and knowing God are two distinct, very separate things. Very different. So I sit here today as a man who a few months ago, I was not going to speak publicly about my being, what I thought with God, my creator. It was something that I was avoiding. And it's because of that avoidance, it hurt every other area when it comes to Core 4 in my life. I didn't feel my purpose. I was ignoring my calling to go lead men and to wake them the fuck up. And that's why this is called Wake Up Wednesday. But that was my calling, and I kept ignoring it. And God kept coming to me saying, Paul, this is what you should do. 2 years ago, my wife and I had this conversation of I felt like I should go coach men. But I didn't think I could. I didn't have the confidence within myself that I could go help awaken other men. And let me tell you, it's different now. And it's different because I leaned into my calling. I leaned into this idea of God daily as part of my Core 4. So 2 months ago, God spoke to me again after a long time. Because I was finally ready to hear what my purpose and my calling were. So, for me, I heard that voice during my morning meditation. And again, that may look something different for you. And that's okay. But for me, someone who tried to meditate multiple times and could not separate mind and body, it was difficult. So I stopped seeking it. And I paid the price. Because you see, I feel God has a funny way of, he'll put it out there. He'll tell you what you need to do. And it's up to you to, follow that path or not. And if you don't, like I did, it's going to come back around until you decide to step into it like I have now. And part of this conversation in being and meditation and creator and God or whatever you call it, for me, I have a fear. And you may have heard different forms of this. I don't know where I got it, but for me, it is that day that I've been called home and I'm standing in front of God, and he starts listing all these things. You know, here's a muscular man. Here's a man that does this. Here's a man that helped awaken others. Here's a man that, was able to do all these things in his life. And then I say, that doesn't sound like me. And then God says, you're right. That's who you were supposed to be. Those are the things you were supposed to do. But you ignored your calling. And as a man, that's one of my greatest fears, is standing before God, knowing that I've been called to do certain things, and I chose not to do it. It's my greatest fear. And that's why I'm talking to you publicly, putting this out there, and I don't care who watches it. I don't care if I have family members who get upset at me because they are the epitome of sedated Christians. People that will throw Bible verse after Bible verse at you, yet their marriage sucks. Yet they treat their spouse like crap. I don't care. Because they can say and do and keep putting scripture all over, it doesn't affect me. Because God existed before the Bible, and God existed before religion. And for a long time, I've thought religion is a massive business. I don't know if you guys recently saw, but the amount of money the Mormon Church has is like higher than any of these Fortune 500 companies. It's insane. So to me, it's a business. It's not a place that I ever found God, that I came to know him. For me, it was in my cold plunge, knocking on the sky, as I call it. Seek, knock, ask. Seek within myself for the things that I want God to know. What's working? What's not working? What am I frustrated about? And then knocking and asking for what I want. What do I want? What do I need to do? What do I need to see? What do I need to hear and feel? And I do this in my morning cold plunge. And there's a distinct physiology behind that. It's called fight or flight. And I'm not saying you have to hop in a cold plunge to find God. That's just what happened for me. But the physiology behind hopping in a cold plunge, the fight or flight system, your body wants to tell you to get out. It wants you to remove yourself from that situation. So I was thinking about all the times that I've tried to meditate before, and I couldn't do it. Hey, what's up, Cap? I couldn't do it. I was too in my head. So as soon as I got in that cold plunge, I said, I'm going to quiet my mind, and that's how I got clear. And now that's how I do it every single day. And what that's done for me is now when I'm outside of my cold plunge and I meditate, it actually has made it a lot easier. So I'd have you guys consider for a minute that if this is a missing area in your life, why is it missing? And what is the cost of that not being a part of your daily practice? What is the cost? And for me, as a man, that cost was too much to bear. And for me, it was that fear that I spoke of, that I'm going to do everything in my ability to not be in that position when I get called home. I'm going to do everything that I can to help awaken others so that they can not endure this life, but live it. You know, if you were somebody that unfortunately got told today that you only had a week to live, what would you do? You would act drastically different. You'd have a drastic, different outlook on life. You would live it a different way. Why aren't you doing that now? Why aren't you living that way now? Because one of the very few things we all have in common is we all have an expiration date that we truly do not know. We don't. I could wake up or I could not wake up tomorrow. So that's where we need to realize we're living so simply. We're living in scarcity. And we need to flip the script. Because I'm on a path that I want to help awaken others. But this idea of enslavement and prison that has been put out there, like retirement, I think we have it all wrong. I think we have the idea of how to know our Creators all wrong. And I've been putting this out there publicly for a couple weeks now. I put something out there about building my kingdom and all this stuff, and a lesson from the stack that God told me, and I got some criticism. And like I said, I don't really read the Bible, but I know that in the Bible it says, the kingdom of heaven is within. And what would it mean as a coach, if I was coaching other men, I helped awaken them to their idea of being, their idea of God. What would it mean if that then affected their marriage, affected the relationship with their kids, affected how they treat their body, how they treat their job, their business? That, my friends, is power. Having that at your disposal is power. You feel powerful as a man. So that's my take. I'm sure I ruffled some feathers a little bit, and that's okay. This is take 2. Did take 1 in the car, but my phone got hot and shut off, so I had to do it again. But I appreciate y'all for watching. And I'd like to have a conversation. So if you're a man that feels he needs to rise and he's not living in his true self, he's not living in his true power, then the next thing you need to do is shoot me a DM. And let's have that conversation on what that looks like for you. Because I can only tell you what it looks like for me. And I can only share my journey with you by doing these videos every day. But it's not me telling you what to do. It's showing you what you must do. Showing you what you have been called to do. So I'm going to go get dinner rolling for my boys. Thanks again for popping on, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.